Every Sunday for 30 years, Mr. Kowalski opened his barbershop at 6 a.m., even though his first customer never came before 9. Nobody knew who the extra chair was for. He never let anyone sit in it. The shop was small, tucked between a shuttered shoe repair store and a bakery that changed owners 4 times over the decades, but the barbershop itself never changed. Same red leather chairs, same black and white photographs of boxers on the wall, same bell above the door that announced every customer with the same tired chime it had made since 1974. There were 4 chairs in Kowalski's shop. 3 of them saw customers every single day, worn smooth by decades of use. The 4th sat in the corner, spotless, untouched, angled slightly toward the window like it was waiting for someone to arrive. Regulars learned early not to sit in it. New customers who tried were redirected, politely but firmly, to one of the other 3 chairs, no explanation offered. Just superstition, Kowalski would say if pressed, waving a hand like it wasn't worth discussing. Old barbers get particular. Tommy started sweeping floors at the shop the summer he turned 15, paid under the table, mostly there because his mother needed him out of the house, and Kowalski needed someone who wouldn't ask too many questions. He noticed the empty chair his first week. He noticed, too, that every Sunday morning before opening, Kowalski would polish that one chair by hand, not the others, just that one, running a soft cloth over the leather with the kind of care most people reserved for something far more fragile than furniture. Tommy didn't ask about it for 2 years. There was something in the ritual that felt like it wasn't his to interrupt. It was the summer Tommy turned 17 when he finally worked up the courage, mostly because he'd started noticing something else. Every year, on a specific Sunday in late August, Kowalski would close the shop early, hang a small handwritten sign in the window that just said "back at 2", and disappear for exactly 4 hours. "Where do you go?" Tommy finally asked, the August he turned 17, watching Kowalski flip the sign. Kowalski paused at the door, hands still on the latch, and for a long moment Tommy thought he wasn't going to answer at all. "You want to come find out?" he said instead. They drove 20 minutes out of town, to a cemetery Tommy had passed 100 times without ever really looking at, and Kowalski walked with the confidence of someone who'd made the same walk so many times his feet knew it better than his eyes did, stopping at a modest headstone under an old oak tree. ANDRZJNOWAK, 1948–1994. "My best friend," Kowalski said, crouching slowly to brush a few stray leaves off the stone. "We came over from Poland together in 71. Learned the trade together in the same shop, under the same old man who taught us both. Opened this place together 5 years later. Split everything 50-50, rent, chairs, customers, bad days and good ones. What happened to him? Heart attack. Right there in the shop, on a Tuesday morning, cutting a kid's hair for his first day of school." Kowalski's voice didn't waver, but something in his shoulders did. "I've kept his chair ready every day since, just in case some part of him ever finds his way back to finish the job." Tommy didn't know what to say to that. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, feeling like he'd been let into something he wasn't sure he'd earned yet. "Every August, on his birthday, I come here first thing, tell him how business is going, complain about the new barbershop that opened up on 5th Street undercutting our prices." Kowalski allowed himself a small, tired laugh. "Man's been gone 30 years, and I still can't stop giving him updates." They didn't talk much on the drive back. Tommy understood, without being told, that the empty chair wasn't superstition at all. It was a promise nobody living had ever asked him to make, and one he'd kept anyway, quietly, for 3 decades. Tommy left for community college 2 years later, then transferred to a proper barber program in the city, the kind Kowalski had never had the chance to attend himself, learning the trade the old-fashioned way instead, hands-on, mistake by mistake, under a master who'd learned the same way. Tommy came back most summers, sweeping floors again like nothing had changed, though everything had, in the way it does when you finally understand what you're actually witnessing. Kowalski was 76, the year his hands started shaking too badly to trust with a straight razor. He didn't announce it. He just started declining the shaves, quietly steering those customers toward Marcus, his other longtime barber, offering excuses about his schedule that nobody quite believed. Tommy noticed, before Kowalski said anything, the way he'd learned to notice most things about the old man over the years. "You should let me take over some of your regulars," Tommy said, 26 now, fully licensed, back for what was supposed to be a 2-week visit that had quietly stretched into 2 months. "Not because you can't do it, just to take some weight off." Kowalski didn't argue, which told Tommy more than an argument would have. That August, on Andrzej's birthday, Kowalski didn't drive out to the cemetery alone. He asked Tommy to come, the way he had years before, except this time he didn't lead the walk to the headstone. He let Tommy lead it, testing whether the young man remembered the way after all these years. Tommy did. He'd never once forgotten it. "He'd been thinking," Kowalski said, standing at the grave, hands folded in front of him, "about what happens to that 4th chair when I'm not the one keeping it polished anymore." Tommy didn't answer right away. He understood somehow that this wasn't a question that wanted an immediate response. "I'm not asking you to believe in ghosts," Kowalski continued. "I'm asking if you'd keep a promise for a man you never met, because a stubborn old fool asked you to." "I'd keep it," Tommy said. "I already have been, every summer, without you asking." Kowalski looked at him for a long moment, something complicated crossing his weathered face, pride, relief, and the particular grief of a man realizing he was finally allowed to put something down after carrying it alone for 30 years. "Andrzej would have liked you," he said finally. "He always said the good ones stick around even when nobody's watching." Tommy took over the shop fully 3 years later, when Kowalski's hands finally forced the decision that his heart had been avoiding. Kowalski still came in most mornings anyway, not to work, just to sit in one of the 3 working chairs, drink coffee, argue with regulars about boxing matches from decades ago, and watch Tommy run the shop the way he'd once run it himself. 4th chair stayed exactly where it had always been, polished every Sunday morning, angled toward the window, untouched by customers, waiting for nobody in particular and everybody who understood what it meant. When Kowalski passed, peacefully at 83, Tommy closed the shop for exactly 1 day, a Tuesday, the same day of the week Andrzej had died decades before, though Tommy never mentioned that detail to anyone, understanding that some coincidences were better left as quiet, private ones. He reopened the next morning at 6, an hour before he needed to, and spent that first hour the way he'd watched Kowalski spend it every Sunday for a decade, polishing the 4th chair by hand, slow and careful, the way you'd tend to something you'd been trusted to keep exactly as it was. Now there are 2 names Tommy tells the chair about every August, standing at 2 modest headstones under the same old oak tree, one he never met, and one who taught him everything that mattered, including the fact that some promises aren't really about the person you made them to. They're about who you become while keeping them.